Hey guys, it's Katie, and I'm here today to rank the Harry Potter series. I've had a couple of people over the last couple of years ask me to rank the Harry Potter series, just like they asked me to rank the ROTE series. And I ranked the ROTE series in my Q&A, which I'll link up above for you guys so you can go check out to see what my overall ranking is. But I figured, what better way to celebrate Harry and JK's birthday than to rank the series in order. I'm actually going to do something a little bit different though, because and I know I've seen a couple of these series and people just typically do, their current rating. But I'm going to talk about my older rating, and then I'm going to talk about how it's changed since my last reread in 2017. So let's just get into it. My old rating was as follows. I'm not going to go in depth on it because I feel like I'll go more in depth on the newer rating than anything else. But basically my old rating was as follows. It was pretty interchangeable between Order of the Phoenix and Deathly Hallows. They would just frankly change based on how I was feeling on any given day. But I'd probably say Order of the Phoenix was first, and then Deathly Hallows. Then third was Chamber of Secrets. Fourth was Prisoner, then Goblet, then Sorcerer's Stone, and finally Half-Blood Prince. My ranking since that specific ranking, because it's changed a lot over, periods of time, but that was the ranking prior to the current one that I have. And the current ranking that I have has changed quite drastically. And the way I'm going to do it for you guys is start with my least favorite and work all the way up to my favorite book. So let's jump into my new ratings, and I'm going to give you a tiny little bit of a background as to why I'm picking it that way. So my lowest rated Harry Potter book, besides The Cursed Child, because, we don't count that one, is actually The Sorcerer's Stone. Now, before you jump all over my bones and say, oh my God, how can you hate the first book of the series? Hear me out. I don't love the first book for a lot of reasons. One, it's very simplistic and the writing is just not that great, in my honest opinion. Second, I hate how JK really just set up the house system, because she really set us up to just hate everything about Slytherin from the get-go. I mean, while they're still a house and they still have value, and I mean, she's done all this redemption arc stuff for Slytherin since then, you are literally set up to hate them from the first book. I mean, from the time that Harry meets Draco in Diagon Alley, in Madame Malkin's, when he's getting his robes, honestly, we're just pit against Slytherins, and it's just so infuriating because, the other, and just even the other houses too. I mean, it's always just the way that she wrote the first book in terms of, how people will be classified based on their traits and values or whatever. I just thought that was like a little bit irritating, but also it was just, getting to know the world. So, I mean, there wasn't just a lot there. It was very, as I said, very simplistic, and just, it moved along at a quick pace. And I just felt like, as the series went on, things were developed a lot better, if that makes sense. Okay, great. Moving on to the next book. The book that is the second lowest on my list is actually The Half-Blood Prince. That's never been very high up on my list. It's not a book that I've loved. I don't know what it is about it, but there's something about it that really, I don't know, just rubs me the wrong way, I guess. It's, it's not your typical Harry Potter book, but it's also very heavy on the romantic aspects of the world, which, is fine. But it's also a heavy Tom Riddle backstory, which I also really enjoyed, but it also was, I don't know, it just, something about the pacing maybe was off, and something about the story, I don't know, it just felt like it, in some ways it felt like it drags you out of the overall series, if you know what I mean. Everything up to that point has been just pretty typical, you know, year at Hogwarts, whatever. This one is less focused on the classes and more focused on relationships and kind of backstory to ultimately set up the last book. And it just kind of in some ways came out of nowhere. Like some of the plot stuff, it's kind of complicated. I have a very complicated relationship with the Half-Blood Prince. Like I really like it on the one hand, but then on the other hand, there's just a lot that bothers me about it, and I can't quite pinpoint what it is, but there's just something about it that rubs me the wrong way, and I just don't love it. The third from the bottom is actually quite a surprising ranking spot for me, and that is The Chamber of Secrets. If you remember before, The Chamber of Secrets was one of my, you know, higher books, but I think on this reread, I just remembered how much I hate Gilderoy Lockhart, like in the book. I just cannot stand his character. He's so irritating. But I mean, one of the things I do love about that book is the mystery aspect of, you know, everything. Plus, it's year 2 at Hogwarts where, you know, we've settled into the world a little bit. We understand how certain things work. And we're able to, you know, go a little bit more in depth into things. And I just loved the mystery aspect of, you know, the parcel tongue, who is this in the walls, who's petrifying these students, what's going on, and also just adding that little extra drama where Hermione is one of the students that gets petrified, like just seeing Harry and Ron on their own without the help of Hermione, you know, it's just a whole new adventure. And I loved the introduction of Dobby, and I loved just so much about Chamber. But in comparison to some of the other books, it's just a little bit, once again, a little bit lackluster in terms of, like, you know, it's also one of the younger books. It's not as fleshed out as we wanted it to be. It's not as in depth and whatnot. But regardless, I still really, really enjoy Chamber of Secrets, and it's definitely, even though it has a lower ranking, it's definitely one of my favorites. So yeah. And at number 4 is The Order of the Phoenix. Now you guys also might remember that that used to be at my top spot, but the reason it's changed is because the angstiness really gets to you, and just Umbridge really gets to you in every possible way. Like everything about that book is like a major angst disaster, but also like it has so many great aspects to it. Like the students are finally, you know, breaking out of their shells. They're being rebels. They're coming together as a unit, not because of, you know, any big thing, but because of the way that their school is being kind of overtaken by the ministry, and they have this absolutely terrible, horrible human being there teaching them, frankly, garbage, and just not believing, you know, Dumbledore and Harry about the fact that Voldemort's returned and everything. And so, I mean, I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed some of the angstiness. I really did actually like. So much happens in Order. Like, it is the biggest book of the series, and a lot happens. We finally learn about occlumency, and we learn a little bit about Snape's background, which I particularly loved. And I don't know, just there's so much packed into it, and it is so well written, and I have so many fond memories associated with reading Order of the Phoenix for the first time, and I just loved it. Just there's so much complexity, and there's so much to learn about, you know, the wizarding world of Harry Potter within the Order of the Phoenix, and it was so phenomenally done. As I said, it used to be my favorite book, but some of the other things from the other books kind of overtook it just a little bit. But it is definitely still one of my favorites, regardless of where it is in the placement. Then coming in at number 3 is Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, so book 7. And the reason it's in the 3rd spot is because I forgot how much time they spend in the Forest of Dean. Like, I hate, like, just a lot of those scenes could have been cut, I think. Like, we didn't need to have, you know, every little nitty gritty detail of them being in the forest and them, like, you know, journeying to find things and just like talking about finding Horcruxes and like maybe not finding them. I don't know, it just, the pacing was very, very off in that book, and as I said, some of it could have been cut. But also just, I felt like so much was crammed into the last book that could have been introduced earlier. Just the idea of Horcruxes could have been introduced earlier, frankly, and I mean, there was a perfect opportunity of that in the Chamber of Secrets, but she didn't go there, and she should have gone there then, or at least started to implement it more than wait until books 6 and 7 to introduce the concept of Horcruxes. I don't know, it just, certain parts of it really didn't work. However, overall, I really liked the culmination of book 7, like, just all of the stuff that we find out, especially in terms of Snape and his backstory, and then also about Dumbledore and his backstory, and just finding the Horcruxes and all of the action-y things that happen. But it's also just absolutely heartbreaking book because of all of the character deaths that happened. It was so much packed into one book, and it could have been spread a little bit more, if you know what I mean. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I loved getting the backstory. I loved getting everything wrapped up and just seeing the characters' final journey to the growth of what they became ultimately. And coming in at number 2 is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I loved Prisoner so much, mostly because of the aspects of the time turner and time travel, but also just getting to know more of the magical beasts. And also Quidditch in Prisoner is phenomenal. It's so well done. I absolutely loved the Quidditch scenes in Prisoner, but also just, it breaks the mold a little bit from the original formula, if you will, because yes, Harry still does go to Hogwarts. Yes, he still continues lessons. Great. But it's not Voldemort focused. It's focused on a different character who ultimately becomes such an important character to Harry's life for a period of time, and it allows Harry to find out more about his past, and I just really liked that. Also, Lupin is my small son, and I adore him with my being. Plus, just learning about the Marauders era. Like, please give me my Marauders era series in some form. Like, I know a lot of people are boycotting J.K. Rowling from like writing anything else in Harry Potter universe because she's just screwing it all up. But like, seriously, I really want Marauders era content, whether it's in a book form or whether it's in like a TV series or movie franchise. I don't care. I want Marauders content, okay? Like, we didn't get enough, okay? Like, okay. And I just loved getting that aspect of that world building and just learning more about all of this stuff in like the Harry Potter world that we hadn't experienced before. And it was just such a great book overall, and I loved every second of it. And now, in my number 1 spot is, drumroll please, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Now, before you all come at me, because a lot of people don't love this book. A lot of people think that it drags and it's just really boring and it's really dense, and it's just a lot of people's least favorite book in the series. But, you know, hear me out, okay? Not only do we get Harry, you know, going back for another crazy adventure of a year, but it really, really, really breaks the mold of the Harry Potter universe, because it's not a typical year at Hogwarts. First of all, Harry gets to go to the Quidditch World Cup with Ron and Hermione and Cedric. We'll talk about that in a second, because feelings. But I loved the Quidditch World Cup. I know a lot of people don't care, but like, being an avid soccer fan like me, I live and breathe for the World Cup in my case, 3 years, because I watch both the women's and the men's. It's a thing. Oh wait, I also watch the Euro Cup, so I mean, I guess I only have 1 year of soccer off in the summer. Go figure. But I just loved getting that aspect. I loved the overall feeling I got from the book, the overall atmosphere I got, and the excitement and the tension and the terror that people felt because of all of the events that happened at the Quidditch World Cup. Like, it was just so good. And then we go to Hogwarts, and there's this giant tournament going on, and I'm just living for it, right? Okay, like, Triwizard Tournament, great. So then, you know, and then Harry goes back to Hogwarts, and it's not a typical year because we get to meet international wizards. Like, I loved that aspect of Goblet of Fire in particular, because up to this point, it's just been like England, and these are these wizards, and we don't get to hear anything about the international scene at all. So just the fact that we get introduced to more wizards from other wizarding schools and communities was just so great. I absolutely loved it. I mean, we get to meet Durmstrang, which is kind of based on a Hungary/Russia scene. And then we get to deal with Beauxbatons, or is it Beauxbatons? I don't know, I can't French, but they are, you know, the French community, they're a French school. And I just loved getting that extra world building adventure and just seeing everyone interact with each other and start to, you know, make new friendships and everything. Like, I just absolutely loved that introduction. And then also just the Triwizard Tournament in general was just so fun and just so fascinating, because it was the most in-depth we got in terms of like magical things and just what a magical tournament in the Harry Potter world would look like, and all of the crazy stuff that goes through. I mean, like, Harry goes through so much growth his 4th year because of all of the stuff that he has to learn, because he gets entered into this tournament before, you know, despite the age requirement thing. Like, he has to learn so many spells and magic that is so beyond him and gets tested in so many ways that he never could have fathomed. And so, I mean, that really, really, the 4th book is the turning point of the series. It's where everything for the later books kind of really starts to get set up. I mean, Harry learning all the magic he did prepares him to create the DA in the Order of the Phoenix, and also Cedric's death. Be still, my heart. They were in love. Convince me otherwise. I dare you, okay? Cedric's death really seriously impacted Harry. Everything that he did after the graveyard was with Cedric in mind. Like, Cedric was a common theme that popped up throughout the last 3 books, 5, 6, and 7, because, you know, Harry bonded with Cho over Cedric, and like, that was a whole adventure. And then also just like Harry constantly had this inner monologue about Cedric, and he had all of these, you know, nightmares about him, especially the summer after, you know, he died and everything. And even Dudley weighs in on it. And so Cedric is kind of this big symbol of everything that is, I guess, good in this world and what they're kind of fighting for ultimately. And I just really loved getting to see that, you know, get expanded upon as time went on and whatnot. And just, I loved Harry's interactions with Cedric, okay? Like, you can fight me on that till forever, but I loved them. Like, even in Prisoner, when Harry gets shoved into the Whomping Willow and his poor Nimbus 2000 gets destroyed because of the Dementors that come and attack him on student grounds. Cedric wanted to, you know, not just allow them to win the match. He wanted a rematch because, you know, it wasn't fair. And everyone else is like, no, like, we won. And that even comes up in Goblet because we get to see all of the pressures put on Cedric from his father and everything. And just honestly, there was just so much phenomenal writing and world building and just everything in Goblet. Like, the tasks themselves, as I said, they prepared Harry for the time to come, especially in book 5 when he founded the DA. And then also, as I said, Cedric's death really impacted Harry and prepared him, and just was kind of something that he carried around with him as time went on. And it put so many things into place, and I just absolutely adored everything about Goblet of Fire. And just, as I said, it was just so well done, and there's just so many great things about it. I mean, the characters really start to come into their own. They're starting to grow up. They're starting to become interested in other people in a romantic way. And I don't know, I just thought that everything about Goblet was phenomenally done. And so it will probably stay as my favorite for a long time. And I'll be interested to see how my thoughts or feelings change upon next reread, which I'm planning on hopefully doing in 2020, maybe. We'll see. I'm toying with the idea of making 2020 just a pure rereading year, but at the same time, I don't know if that's a good idea. But I don't know what's a good idea anymore. I'm just kind of trying to float and do whatever I want to do with my life. Those are all of my thoughts on ranking the Harry Potter series, you know, not really including The Cursed Child, but like also that's my lowest ranked book of all of them. Like, is that really a contest? And I'm also not including things like Tales of Beedle the Bard or Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them or Quidditch Through the Ages. Like, it's just, they're short stories. They're little extra things that don't need to be included in this ranking. But I mean, they add things to the world and they're okay. Like, I don't really have many thoughts about them one way or another, but probably out of the supplemental readings, my favorite would be Tales of Beedle the Bard. But that's just my overall general thought on the matter. But yeah, that's about all I've got. I'd love to hear your ranking down in the comments, because I'm assuming most of you have read the Harry Potter series at this point. And if you haven't, feel free to come back after you've read them if you're planning on reading them, and let me know what your overall ranking is. That's about all I've got for you guys today. You guys know the drill. I have my social media links down below. I have a Twitter, which is at A Sea of Tomes, which is the same as my handle here. And then I also have a Goodreads page, which you guys can go check out, so you can check out my progress on whatever I've been reading at any given moment, which I am currently not, because I am literally, as this is streaming to you guys, in the bar exam as we speak. Please just scream for me. And I will catch you later in another video very, very soon. Bye!